one of the profound things that artists do is they lie all the time. And they lie in order to tell the truth. And this is a really, really good example of a strong, strong play written by a great playwright where she took a true story and she spun a story that had a deeper truth to it. And so the question I have is, how did you hear about the story, and why did you choose the story, and what about Barb and Kevin spoke to you as a playwright?
Thank you. I'm going to tell you, first of all, I think that the story hit me because I'm a mom. And I was listening to NPR in my kitchen, just kind of puttering around, and it was right after Argo, the movie Argo came out, and Scott Simon was interviewing Kevin. And at some point in the interview, he said, your mother was so brave to come visit you while you were a hostage, and I just want to let you know that I think that she's a real hero. And I sort of thought, I kind of stopped and thought, wait a minute, his mother visited him when he was a hostage? I'm not even allowed to visit my kid at school. I don't understand. And that doesn't translate into anything I know about the times now and hostages. And so, and then something in the way that Scott said it suggested to me that people didn't think it was okay that Barbara had made this incredible journey. So I did some research, and sure enough, and I discovered these extraordinary people, and I just really felt moved to tell the story, from that.
Barb, how does it feel to have a fictional character on stage with your name?
It was really unreal. When I was reading a brochure and it said, "Come and meet the real Barbara Timm," and I thought that it feels creepy. I am me. I am just a mother, a wife, and a grandmother who happened to have found herself in a place in history that I did not want to be. I would not wish it upon anybody. And but it's very powerful. The part that happened over here on this play was so real. I would say almost to 100% was realistic on what took place. Over here, not so much. but the stuff that actually went on in Iran. And so watching that, and then probably the most powerful part for me during this whole play was when they tied his hands up and put the blindfold on him again and walked him away. That really happened. And that was the worst part of my whole time over there, was when they took him away. Originally, there were a lot of families were supposed to go.
15 families were in Switzerland,
But
and they couldn't get their visas. She's the only one who got the
I got
visa.
a letter from a lady in Canada. That part of the play was very accurate.
Yep.
This letter, the letters that were allowed out from the pastors that went at Christmas time, and they brought the hostages some mail, not from their family members, just from strangers, and they were allowed to send a couple letters out. And this one lady in Canada, I never met her, don't know who she is, she called me and said she received a letter from Kevin. And it said, "I don't know if you'll get this. First of all, thank you for your Christmas card, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "If you get this letter, this is my mom's phone number." He said a couple of things in there. She told me that he was told that I had died. That was one of their ways of torturing them. And that he had said that he had attempted to escape, and he was put in solitary confinement, and that if he had a chance again, he would try to escape again, because he'd rather die than spend another day as a hostage.
So there were 43 days in solitary confinement after a failed escape attempt with two of the other Americans, Stephen Lauterbach and Sergeant Joe Subik. And we didn't succeed in our escape attempt. We ended up I spent 43 days in solitary confinement. The only time I ever got out of that room, it was a small 5 by 10 foot size room, only a box spring on the floor, handcuffed behind my back, blindfolded. The only time I ever got out of that room in 43 days was to take one bathroom stop per day on their time schedule, and to take 3 showers in the 6.5 weeks. And it was while we were in solitary confinement, while I was in solitary confinement, that there was the mock execution, which people have asked me over the years, 40 years almost since we've been released, you know, is there a single day that was the most frightening day of all? And it would have been the mock execution, where they lined us up, dragged us out of our rooms, stripped us down into just our undershorts. They blindfolded us, handcuffed us with handcuffs, made us face the wall, and up and down the hallway of the lower level of the embassy building, where many of us, not all, many of us were housed at the time, they shouted out execution commands in Farsi at the top of their lungs. And it was such a frightening time that one of the other Americans, Colonel Dave Rader, was so upset. We were all scared, but so upset at their mind control that he shouted out at the top of his lungs, he cursed and said, "Just get it over with. You guys have been playing these types of games for 7 months already." And as quickly as it started, it was over. They gave us our clothes back, they put us into our rooms, took the blindfold off, and we got dressed again. And it was all about their effort to, so someone said, why did they do it? Because they could. Ambassador Limbert said because they could. And that is the reason they did it.
While I was over there is when the rescue attempt took place, and that was played out here. The rescue attempt took place. It was the day after I saw Kevin. Our attorney had said that they were going to take the hostages and they were going to execute them because of our attempt at the rescue. And then they were going to take me in and kill me because while in the beginning they let me see Kevin because they thought I was just a mother, after the rescue attempt, they thought that I was a plant from the U.S. government, that I was put there for all the cameras to be on me, and then the rescue attempt could sneak in the back door and rescue the hostages. So the terrorists thought that I was a plant from the government. So he suggested that I speak, and I got a call from one of the hostage families, called our attorney and said, I want her to apologize for me and a couple of the other State Department families. I was scared stiff. And I kind of knew in the back of my head what would happen, but I also feared the unknown if I didn't, and that was the threat that they were going to kill the hostages. So I said exactly what the woman said here in the play. I apologized on behalf of myself and several other hostage families. I never did say on behalf of our country. Those words never came out of my mouth. But I did say on behalf of myself and a couple other families, I apologized for what took place. Well, when we got home, I thought what I saw in Iran was bad. We landed in O'Hare. I live in Wisconsin. We landed in O'Hare Airport, and there were just crowds of people, and there were a lot of police officers. And as we got off the plane, they said, just let us stay with you. And they just grabbed my arms, one on each side of me, and one on each side of my husband. And they escorted us through this mob. And with God as my witness, what I'm going to tell you is the truth. As we were walking through the airport, one of the journalists, don't know who he was, have no idea, but he yelled out and he said, Mrs. Timm, is it true that you had to give the Ayatollah a blowjob in order to see Kevin? God is my witness. That happened. Well, it's a good thing the cops were there to hold my husband back. Because, I mean, there would have been mayhem. And that's what they were looking for. That's exactly why they said such a vulgar thing. Because they were looking for reaction from him. But of course, we said nothing. But yes, there was a lot of hatred when I got home. I was in McDonald's with my youngest son, and a woman said, aren't you that woman that went to see her eyes? Yes. She just spit right in my face. I lived in Oak Creek for many years up to that point. My children were raised and grew up there. And yet, and you know, I got a lot of mail, and I got a lot of really warm, loving mail, but that's not the stuff I remembered. I remember the ugliness, and there was a lot of it.
What was the biggest challenge adapting this story to the stage for you?
Oh, there were so many. I mean, there was the issue of real people and wanting to write about real events, but also wanting to write from what moved me to write, which meant I was going to have to take some creative license, you know, to find that emotional place in the play. That was challenging. Trying to negotiate between Oak Creek and Tehran. I mean, from what I could tell, there weren't two places that were a lot more different, you know, and to try to find, you know, for the purposes of a stage, what links things together. And of course, it's not places that link together, it's people that link together. I started being very interested in Barbara and a mother that would go to these lengths. And then when I read Guess the Other, I started wondering about the students also and wondering what it was that had, you know, driven them this far. I mean, there must be a reason. And then I don't know if I ever told you this, but I read an interview with you, and you said there must be some reason why these people are so angry that they would take our people. And to me, that line, that was the whole opening for me to be able to write the play. Because to me, that was somebody who was thoughtful and that as angry and as terrified as you must have been, it was amazing to me that you were able to think about the other side and consider that they had their reasons. You didn't have to agree with them, but that you thought that they could be there.
Yeah, and while some of them tried to present to me their reasons for it, they did it in such a negative, angry way. You know, we had to go to the cemetery, and we had to be shown and we had to be told all these stories. You know, that's not really what I meant. If I would have had the opportunity while I was there to sit down one-on-one with someone who really could give a reason, you know, talk to me, maybe mother to mother, like the actor here who lost his son. Oh my God, that was so powerful. And I'm sure it's true that it happened. If I could have had an opportunity to sit down one-on-one, I would have liked that. But I never had that chance. Everything was just shoved onto us, and everything was so negative, and there's so, you know, death to America, and so it was hard to understand their reason.
So how long was your actual visit, the two of you? Was it 10 minutes, a half
She said
hour?
it's 45, I thought it was about 20.
I don't know. When I got in there,
I was already there.
he was there. I cannot honestly remember if you had a blindfold on or not at that point. But I walked in, I had two, and they wouldn't let my husband in because they thought he was a spy. Because when we were interviewed by the terrorists before we went in there, my husband was very belligerent with them. He wasn't, yes sir, like I was. So, when I got in there, he was there. We embraced each other. He whispered in my ear, we cannot talk about anything but back home, about the family and school, because he said this whole place is bugged.
There was a small sofa, almost a love seat size seat. I was sitting down. There were 30 TV cameras in the background. Back by the door, there was a coffee table and this huge, hideous, you said beautiful, hideous plant. And there were about 50 little teeny tiny microphones sticking out of it. And I said, look at all the mics.
You whispered that.
I know.
But there were, I don't know how many guards, probably, I say maybe 6 to 10, maybe less, maybe more, that stood with their rifles on us the entire time. They never took those rifles off of us.
That was always for us.
Yeah. So the whole time that we were together, were there 6 to 12? How many were there?
I don't know. When you came in the room, I was like, what in the hell is happening?
Right, yeah, like,
I mean,
when they first when they came to my room to say, come with me, I know that every other time that they had taken me out of the room in which I was with another roommate, that it always meant something bad. Meant I was going to solitary, every other time, 3 other times going to solitary confinement. Once the escape attempt, once, and 2 other times for other incidents. And so when they came in, I was like, okay, what's next? All right, you know, you've got to get your back up. You've got to have your stiff upper lip. You have to be prepared for uncertainty. You really have to be prepared for the emotional ups and downs. And this became one of the biggest emotional ups and downs because I spent the entire time with my mom, that 20 to 45 minutes, truly fearing what was going to happen to her. How did she get in? Why is she there? How are they going to use it for propaganda? None of the things she was thinking about at the time when she made the decision to go, for sure, but it all became reality. And then, for me, all right, what am I going to do when I got back and talked to Alan? What am I going to do emotionally, how to deal with that?
And when I left, when he was taken away, he had slipped me a letter. And I hadn't read it until I was on the plane. And it was a short note, I shouldn't say a letter, a note. And it said, he loved every minute of our visit. He's so grateful to see me. I hear that the kids are doing okay back home. But he says, but I wish you wouldn't have come. That haunted me from that day until the day he was released. Because I didn't know what he meant by that. And I felt guilt. I felt very guilty. And yet what the meaning on it was totally different than what my head was telling me it meant. Because he was put through all this emotional stuff on what was going to happen to me. And that still never entered my mind. But that was the reasons that he wrote that. But that haunted me for a long time. One of the things that happened while he was in Iran, we were invited out to Washington for family briefings. I think they had a total of 4 or 5 of them during the 444 days. And I hated every one of them. They were like large cocktail parties. The majority of the hostages were State Department people. They weren't military. The majority were State Department. And they had these large cocktail parties. And I just wanted to know what they're going to do to bring our people home. So we had to sit in this room and we had to listen to these speakers tell us about how we should treat our hostages when they get home, how they'll probably react. They'll probably want to have a drawer full of underwear because they were denied clean underwear. If we find them sitting in the corner of their bedroom with a cap on or something over their eyes, we should treat them gently. This is what we were told. Nobody prepared me for when this 21-year-old good-looking Marine got off the airplane in his dress blues and his white cap, that all these teeny boppers were going to be following him around for the next 2 years.
It was pretty cool.
But this is what the State Department told us was going to happen. I had no idea what a hostage would be like when they got home. And that was the reality of it. If we were both to be honest, we would both probably say, I'm still not over it.
Talked about that last night.
Yeah, I'm probably still not completely over it.
It's true.
But like when he got home and all these teeny boppers were literally, I mean, all these, they were following him around.
Like the Beatles.
And, yeah, and I wanted him to be with us at home. You know, if that makes, I mean, he's
No, it makes perfect sense.
I wanted him to be there. I wanted him to talk to me. I wanted him to tell us how bad. I didn't want him to tell us the horrible things, but yet I did. And yet he was out. He was gone. On the nights that he wasn't
Out at schools, out elsewhere in the States
speaking, he was out socially, which he should have been. He was denied 444 days of his life, of his young life. He spent his 21st birthday locked up as a hostage. So while he was supposed to be out there, I wanted him home. it felt selfish, and yet it's what I wanted, and yet I didn't want it. It was all craziness mixed up inside of me.
It's like it's the essential mom story on steroids. Right?
I would love to go back to Iran someday.
Oh no.
The morning we were captured, I told you this last night. The morning we were captured, my assignment was 6 months. The morning we were captured, I had been in the office and I signed an extension for 6 more months. I loved it there so much. Little did I know that just 4 hours later they would involuntarily extend my stay. The thing that kept me going, I did not want to embarrass my family, my service, or my country, and yes, or myself, in anything that I did or said or how I behaved. I never established a single friendship with any of the guards. The guards who held us day to day were scarred when one of their best buddies and a guy who was a nemesis of ours, who took care of us and pushed us around and slammed us. We had blindfolds on any time that he would deliberately walk us into walls. He took pleasure in this. I wasn't happy when we learned that he died in the Iran-Iraq war, but I wasn't exactly remorseful either, because we didn't feel like we were guests at all.
We have time for one more question. And it looks like I'm going to pick on the woman behind you who has not asked a question yet.
Now, as I understand it, you said that there were other families waiting in Switzerland to go and visit with the prisoners. How did you get chosen? And I gather that no other families were chosen. Is that correct?
There was, yeah, I never went to Switzerland. There was a group called Amnesty International. Now, this is my understanding, okay? They met with all of the all the military families at one of the family briefings. And there was this lawyer and some other lawyer people. And they said they're going to get this group of military families, not the State Department, just the military families. It was going to get a group of them together and go over to Iran to visit them.
But you
and
were
talk
not,
to them.
You were not part of that.
No, originally,
She went to Paris.
the original group was supposed to go in January. And my husband and Kevin's father, my ex-husband, were going to go. The women were not supposed to go because Iran doesn't like women. They were in New York. There was a group of about probably 20 of the men, fathers and brothers, that were in New York waiting for visas to go over there the very day that the news broke of the Canadians bringing out the 6 American hostages. The visas were denied.
It became part of Argo. That was the movie Argo that characterized that event.
So that whole journey of those men that were supposed to go over there got stopped. That was no longer possible after that happened. So that was in January. In March, we had a family briefing, and the same lawyer was there, and he said, we're going to still plan on going over there, and we're going to include the mothers if they want, the wives. Quite a few of the Marine mothers signed up to go. One by one, they dropped out. I didn't drop out. I have to see Kevin. Some of the mothers called me and gave me their blessings and said they wish they would have been that strong. They wish they would have been able to go, but their family members wouldn't let them or whatever. And some of them condemned me that I shouldn't be going. And I didn't care what they said. I cared what he said or what he felt. So I don't know anything about the people that were in Switzerland. Those were all State Department families. And I don't know anything about how they got involved. Apparently, and I didn't know this, but apparently Carter put on a ban, a travel ban for Americans to go to Iran because he had rescue attempt plan. We did not know that. Nobody knew about the rescue attempt plan.
Did he know that you all were going?
Yeah,
He did know, and yet he had the rescue.
So you have to understand that these events were fluid. The rescue mission was well underway. There were 10,000 military volunteers for the rescue mission, which was boiled down to 200 within the first 4 months after we were captured, and 150 of them were chosen 2 weeks before the ultimate rescue mission known as Operation Eagle Claw. And so this team began to arrive in Oman and in Egypt and on the USS Nimitz in the Persian Gulf. This team was already moving forward. The commanders were already on the stations where they belonged, and then this mom shows up in Tehran. They continued the mission. We didn't know about the rescue mission until 2 months after it happened. So my worry about my mom not getting out wasn't because of the rescue mission. It was like, why would they let her in? Therefore, why would they let her out? Because they have let her in, why would they let her out? They've got the rest of us here.
and so I imagine that the people, the State Department people that were in Switzerland waiting their visas, when Carter put on the travel ban, they probably all backed off. Well, my attorney said, we're going. Mrs. Timm is gonna go. Travel ban or no travel, and I didn't know about the travel ban.
You were already there,
But-
partly there.
Well, we were in
You
Paris.
were already in Europe.
Okay, and then we got the okay to go, and we had to spend 3 or 4 days there, I don't remember how many, doing all their visits, and then the day I got to see him, the next day was and we had our plane fare to go home the next day when the rescue attempt took place, and they said we weren't going anywhere.
So we learned about the rescue mission 2 months after it happened. But all we heard was the fact that 8 men had died. 3 Marines and 5 airmen. Last weekend, my wife and I, we were in Washington, D.C. at an event, and I had the amazing privilege of meeting 6 of the men who were on the rescue mission for the first time. We were at this event, and I heard one by one these men talking about how terrible it was that they failed, how bad it was. And then it was my turn to speak. And I looked at each one and I paused. And I said, guys, I wish that I had known for 40 years that this is how you have felt. Because I'll tell you what, when we learned that you had tried, that is in fact what kept us going the last 8 months. You succeeded not in freeing us early. Yes, we had to spend another 8 months. But you succeeded in giving us that last vestige of hope.
You didn't fail at anything.
For 444 days, we spent time in captivity. For 40 years, I mentioned those 80,000 letters I have, welcoming us home, newspaper articles. We are viewed as heroes for what we endured, the hostages. There were heroes in the hostage crisis. There were 9 of them. The 3 Marines and 5 airmen who selflessly stepped forward and, as it turned out, gave their lives in the off chance they might have succeeded in getting us out early. Some of the wives came up to me of these men and said, for 40 years my husband has lived with the guilt and the PTSD of knowing that, of believing he had failed. If only he had known that you guys felt that there was an element of success in it, how different our lives would have been the last 4 decades.
There's another play here.
The other hero was a person who represented a lot of the family members they probably never told her this, but the other hero was my mom. So thank you all for being here. I have a plan